welcome to Guest Talks. This is a place where we chat about things that we maybe normally don't discuss, our challenges, our how we overcome our adversities. And today I have a very special guest, Enrico Leasa, who is a Muay Thai fighter, a visual effects artist, and a dad. And I am very excited to have you today. And thank you for joining me in this conversation.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Maggie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. So also June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm very happy to have you here. And again, thank you so much for agreeing to this conversation because I think it's important to talk about our challenges as well. You know, Muay Thai is a very intense sport and we have a lot of highs and lows, and mostly we talk about the highs, and then the lows we kind of keep to ourselves, and or many of us keep to ourselves and kind of forced to deal with them by ourselves. So before we get into the challenges, I want to congratulate you on the latest win. How does it feel to have that big win?
Yeah, no, it feels good. I'm very happy, very, you know, just very satisfied. So, yeah, it was good. Thank you. It's really
Mm.
good.
Yeah. So for those who may not know, you have been back in the ring, and that was, I believe, your fourth performance since you're back,
Yep.
and the first win. So I've been there before as well, like having consecutive losses and then needing to pick myself up and still, remain focused. And how did you handle it? How did you handle this fight prep? I know it must have been quite challenging just because you had few losses in a row. So walk us
Yeah.
through
Yeah. So I think like when I came back, I feel like when you start anything or like you have any goal in mind, you think it's going to be like a straight path straight to like where you envision or where you think you're going to end up. But then, like, obviously, instead of it going into a straight line, it just goes. So I think I came to that realization that like it's not going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. Um, but yeah, it just took like a bit of just putting my head down and just making sure that I was staying consistent, holding myself accountable, and like eventually it would work out. Which it did, which it did. So
it.
it's
It
all a
did,
learning
yeah.
curve. Yeah, it did.
Okay. Why don't you take us to the beginning? Because I don't actually know your story fully.
Yep.
So when did you start fighting? How did you even find Muay Thai? How this whole sport came about for you?
It started when I was about 14, just turning 15. I was in high school and I had like my best friend wanted to do just like he started doing Muay Thai out in Penrith in Sydney, and
Mm-hmm.
he was just doing like beginner classes with another friend. And he started doing that, and his friend, like our other friend, couldn't make it, so he asked if I wanted to come and do the class with him. I think he had like a trial class with a friend or something. And so I went and did my first class, and like I was hooked like from the jump. Like I wanted to go all out, just get all the gear, and had no idea what I was doing. I wanted shin pads. Like the second I left the gym, like I fell in love with it. Like
I
um
can relate.
yeah, it was just like it was such a. I still like very vividly remember that feeling, and I try to hold on to that feeling, like of that love for like the sport. Even now, and it's been like 10 plus years on.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, I did that, and then eventually like I told my older brothers about it, and they got hooked, and then we all kind of bonded through that, started fighting. My brothers, had one or two fights, and um, yeah, it was just like everything was just filtered through it. I finished like as I was in high school from like year 10, go to school, go to training with my brothers, go to school, go to train every day.
Mm.
And it just like, yeah, it's just eventually it got to a point maybe when I finished school and I hit like 22. And as majority of the people when they're 22, they kind of like hit this point where they don't really know what they, want to do. They have these
Mm-hmm.
sudden realizations with life where they're just like, do I want to go to uni? Do I just whatever it is, like it's a bit of a weird stage. And so that was me, like, people trying to figure out, like, do they want to do this as a job? For me, it was like, do I still want to fight? Like, is it like,
Mm.
I was like, do I want to do this as a career? And so I kind of like got to this realization where I was just like, nah, I think I want to try something else. So then I decided to like kind of follow, I had a love for like movies and animation and stuff, and I kind of fell into that. So I wanted to like study that. And so I pursued that as a career instead. And yeah, I studied and eventually I got a job. I found a job
Mm.
um, under a pretty big company, which is pretty cool. And
Amazing.
yeah, it kind of came full circle where like that became a job. And I don't know, I'm very like, I need constant stimulation, like as a person, like, and so when that kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, I need something else, but there was nothing else. And I like really still, I was like, maybe I'll give fighting like in, training again,
Mm-hmm.
like a crack. Had kids in that time span. I'm sort of going all over the place, but
That's okay. That's okay.
in that like time when I was studying, I had kids, I got married, um, and yeah, it was kind of at this point where I was like, still love this sport, and I still think I could, do pretty well. So why not give it another go? And so after like a solid year of trying to like convince my wife that I was going to fight again, because she's been with me since I was about, I'd say, yeah, since almost the whole start of my career, with fighting. So she knew the amount of time and effort that,
Mm.
I have to put in. And so it's just kind of trying to get her to agree, let me do it now that we have kids and, we have this, responsibility over here. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually she was like, yeah, okay. She agreed. And I did my first, came back and had my first fight back in November last year, 2023. Um, and that was, yeah, it's a good test. So I'm like back into this like sort of testing phase where like, just figuring out how to balance work, life, kids, training, like, and
Yeah, because
yeah.
before when you were fighting, it was just school. So it must have looked completely different. You
Oh,
weren't the responsible adult,
yeah.
or you were still a kid, so you probably had your parents' support and everything else. So it's like it's a completely different reality.
Oh, big time, you're not paying rent, you're living at your mom and dad's
Yeah.
house, they're paying for your food. Oh, life was easy. And
The
back then I
dream.
thought I was like, oh, it's so hard. But, looking back in hindsight, it's like, oh, what a dream.
Yeah. So how do you balance? How do you balance now that you're back, now that you know that you want this to make it your career or be a big part of your life? How do
Mhm.
you balance being a dad, having a job and still, training? Because it's not just the fight camps, but it's all the training in between the fight camps as well.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think the balance it goes through, it's weird because the balance I'm constantly trying to figure out. Like
Mm.
it's almost easier for me personally, like my wife would probably say otherwise, but like it's easier for me when I'm in camp because my routine becomes very rigid. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it's like it becomes like work, training, and then I come home and that's really it, work, training, and like my wife, I'm like, kudos to her because she takes on all the other stuff, like, the kids and stuff. Like when I'm at training, she's looking after the kids and doing all those things that, we'd both be sharing in that time. So like I can't say that like I'm the reason I'm so good at balancing my life. It's because it's my, like, I'll
Mm.
say Erin, like my wife, is the one that really helps me with that. Like she takes that part. But I think the balance, like if anything, keeping level headed and like keeping balance mentally is the biggest task for me, as opposed to like the actual physical, like balancing all my responsibilities. It's like trying to find balance mentally, like where I'm absolutely present in each thing I'm doing with work,
Mm.
training, and family. Because like if one of those things, if I'm like not present in one of those things, then like it all starts collapsing slowly, you know what I mean? So I just have to like manage that in that sense.
Okay. Um, so when you I want to talk about the losses. I want to talk
Yes.
about let's just dive into the uncomfortable things.
Yeah, for sure. Please.
Because
I love
I
it.
love to talk about the uncomfortable things.
Yeah.
But because obviously mm, you managed to win your last fight, which tells me already by itself that you have the determination, you have the perseverance, all of those things that we learn through the losses and through commitment in our training as well. But what was like the most challenging thing, whether it was with consecutive losses or just maybe one particular fight? Like,
Mhm.
what did you struggle with the most in terms of yeah, like taking a loss?
Mhm. I think the biggest struggle, I would say, from taking a loss, I think I felt it more in the fight, not the fight before the win that I just had the other week. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think I felt it most there because I feel like I did everything right in training to and all that to like get to end up just like sort of losing, and not to take anything away from like my opponent or whatever, but more so it was just like a mental, again, I get a mental thing where like it just mentally I lost the fight before I even got in there. And just dealing with that, like how do I deal with that, was like you kind of just have to, I guess I had to kind of put it behind me as quick as I could, because 2 weeks later I'm back in camp.
Mm,
And so understanding what it was that I needed to fix, and I think it was like the part of me where it was just anxiety, like a lot of it was anxiety around losing again. um,
mm,
and just managing that, I think, and trying to be more present in the next camp and relaxing a lot more. I was very
mm.
tense in the camp in my that third fight back, because I didn't want to lose. And um, yeah, so I think the way I dealt with it in the following camp was just kind of a lot of meditation, a lot of breath work. I think those helped me heaps just to relax. And like I watched my last fight back, where like I didn't even realize I was doing it, but during camp I was being very conscious of breathing and like focusing on the breath, that when I watch the fight back I'm doing it, subconsciously, like I don't even realize I'm doing it in the fight, in between the rounds. Like I'm closing my eyes, but like my coaches are talking to me but I'm just like thinking about my breath the whole time. um,
Mm.
and so yeah, it's trying not to let the losses hit me too hard, that like they just send me down a pit of like anxiety, and just moving on,
Mm.
just accepting it. I think a big part of like handling losses is accepting it is what it is. Like you can't fix it, you can't.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of like not let it define you, because
Yes.
just because you lost doesn't mean that you are your loss, kind of
Hmm.
thing. But in our heads, it's often so big and so defining of who we are as a fighter and what it means about our whole
Hmm.
endeavor as a fighter, just because we lost or we performed not to the standards. Because I think sometimes the result is one thing, but it's the performance that we
Hmm.
so harshly ourselves criticize. I
Hmm.
would say we are mostly our worst critic.
Mm.
Obviously, Thai coaches are famous for being very to the point and not really like letting it slide. But
Absolutely.
I would say still, like in my amateur fighting journey, I was the one that was putting myself down way more than any coach ever did.
For sure.
So, did you had times in your career that you were like your worst inner critic as well, and how did that evolve into now being more compassionate and
Mm.
just focusing on what really matters rather than having those those intrusive thoughts?
Yeah. Well, it's like that saying, like, don't let the losses get to your hearts or the wind get to your head. Um,
Mm,
and just, you know, everything, I think everything comes down to, you know, the win or the loss. It comes down to like how you perform. It's all performance based. It's
yeah.
never, it's never like a thing of like intention, you know, the way you shouldn't take things to heart, because the way I see it is like when people, you know, give you feedback, especially my coach, he's hard on me, and
Mm,
I've known him, he's been my trainer since I was young. So like he is hard on me. And I think the older I get, the more I realize that feedback, other people only see your performance and how you perform. They never see your intention, or they don't see what's going on in your head.
yeah.
And so when they give you feedback, it's never based on what's going on in your head. It's based on how you perform. So you should never like that. That's what I realized as I've gotten older.
Mm,
So when I was younger, you know, I'd get feedback from my coach, and I would take it to heart. I would be like, I'd play almost like have that victim sort of mindset where I'd be like, oh, that one hurts. But it's not that. He's giving me feedback on my performance as
mm.
opposed to me as a person. Um,
Yes, there's a
you know,
important distinction
there's a
between,
massive difference.
yeah, yeah.
So that's how I've been. That's the difference. When I was younger, I didn't know that. As I'm older, I'm like, oh, in life, anything, like the older you get, you stop taking things so personally like that.
Hmm.
And like, you know, I credit, you know, people that just figure that out when they're younger, as like, you know, as just naturally. But, you know, for the most part, you don't figure that out until hindsight.
Yeah, definitely. I did not really know for sure until I, had my injury and started to then properly kind of look back at the journey and all those thoughts that I had, and why am I such so harsh on myself and
Mhm.
taking everything very personally. I definitely took every single comment after the fight because it's already like you're already upset with yourself that you
Yeah.
lost, especially if you knew that you did everything in the fight camp and you knew that you can do better, and then you go into the ring and your body just doesn't cooperate with you, or your mind is in complete chaos and
Hmm.
you're just not able to perform. So you're already like upset with yourself, and then the coach is like just give you a look or say something, and then I
Yeah.
was just like, oh, well, that means, like I 100% didn't take it as like, oh, they just, want me to improve for the next fight, which
Hmm.
when you outside of your emotions. And I think this is, like I'm a coach now, and this is actually a very it's the same way when we talk about just emotions in general,
Mm.
like when you're inside of your emotions, when you're experiencing all of this, you take everything very personally
Hmm.
because you are inside that emotion and you're feeling it. So
Absolutely.
it's always good to be this observer and this just to be like, okay, well, this is the feedback, this is,
Hmm.
like it doesn't define me, but
Yeah.
it's that story that you have in your head. So what
Yeah.
helped me as well in my healing journey altogether was to separate the feedback from
Yeah.
what it means about me, and even seeing yourself in different places, because you're a fighter in the ring, but you're a dad at home, you're
Hmm.
the visual artist at work, you're a friend somewhere else. So like you have all those personas out there, and this is
Definitely.
just one little feedback, but all of a sudden it defines your whole life and
Yeah.
everywhere you go, like. So
Yeah.
it seems silly, but it's it's easier said than done, right?
For
So
sure.
you mentioned breath work. So I would
Yeah.
like to ask you a few questions on that one, because I remember when I was fighting, I had no idea. Like, I didn't do, there was mental prep was not a popular thing back then, or I didn't know about it. And, I definitely was terrible with breathing. I had no control of my breathing. I probably didn't even breathe properly in the ring, like even when my corners wanted me to, like, breathe in between the rounds, I would be like, why, what for, what's the point? And
Breathe.
then lo and behold, I'm like, oh my God, breath is such a powerful tool that
Oh,
everyone has access to. So what
mhm.
was your journey with the breath work? How did you find it? Because I assume at the beginning of your journey, you also weren't utilizing something that really is available to us since the day we're born, right?
Oh,
So
for sure. It's yeah. So like I think, you know, in sport in general, like people always tell you like focus on your breath, like breathe, breathe, breathe. Um, and so, you hear that and you're like, okay, yeah, I am breathing, but they don't,
yeah, what
I
do you
think,
mean?
yeah, what are you talking about? I'm breathing, like, but I think it's more of the fact of like conscious breathing. That's the key part to catch, like to think and really feel the breath. I think that's an important part because it's so second nature to us. We breathe every second, every day.
Mm, yeah.
But to be conscious of the breath, I think is like something that's super powerful because, when you're in these states of, high, you know, stress and just whatever, anything like, um, to bring it back to the breath, I feel like is something that just grounds you. It grounds me at least. And that's just, I think it was the best tool for dealing with anxiety. Um,
Mm,
and I do a lot of things that are very, you know, conducive of like being an anxious person. Um, and so to have that as a tool, especially now, is just oh, game changer. Because
mm.
it's like you can really
So
get lost in your head.
yeah. So do you have like a practice that you do every day, or you just do it in the moments of stress, or how does it look for you?
For me, it's I like to because I wake up early. I'm a morning person. Like I'll be
Yeah.
up at like 6 o'clock, 5:30 sometimes. Now that I have kids, they wake up
Oh
early.
yeah, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, exactly. But like I think my favorite time to do like do these little exercises of just breathing is the second I wake up. And it's just more like when I wake up and I'm in bed, it's taken practice to get into the habit of it. But when I wake up, I'll lie in bed, and before I even open my eyes, I'm already, listening to my breath. And then eventually
Mm,
I'll open my eyes. And it's only like a 5-minute exercise, but like it comes, it really sets the tone for the day, I feel. Um, and then I always kind of, in moments when I'm stressed in the day or I notice my mind starts running, I'll come back to it and I'll do some breath stuff where I'll just close my eyes and breathe and have those little like 2-minute breaks in the day. Um,
mm,
but honestly, better it's easier said than done because sometimes you can really you just forget about it. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to get better at it and like it's helping a lot.
Yeah, I think it's important that, it's not like it's not a thing that you do once and you master. It's just
Yeah,
something that it's a practice.
yeah,
You get better as you continue to do it.
exactly.
And it's part of the journey with it, I think, as well, is to not be upset at yourself
Hmm.
when it doesn't go the way you want it to,
Yeah,
because sometimes if you're like really upset, maybe you need to focus on your breath for a little longer than 1 minute to
exactly. Like
really.
there are days where like there are days
So,
where like
but we still, again, we add this story, right? That, oh, I need to, like, I did it. Why is it not working? What am I doing wrong? I'm wrong. And all this, it just spirals down.
that's it. And that
Yeah.
that was that was the like thing I noticed about like in the fight camp that I just had was just to be accepting that not everything is going to work the way you want it to.
Mm.
You might have these tools to help you get through hard times, but you have to be accepting that they're not always going to work. They're like,
Yeah.
but it's always the reason it's good because the more tools you have in your arsenal, like the better chance you have at like, getting through whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's yeah, just being understanding that, breath work isn't always going to work. You could meditate for 30 minutes and, finish meditating and then the thoughts come rushing back and, you know,
Yeah.
you're back to being anxious the second you get back to work and it's like, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's really it's the self-compassion is
Mm,
continuing to work on yourself
mhm,
and not attaching any story, that if you failed, even failure is not really a right word.
mm,
We talk about failure all the time or losses and stuff, but really that's just part of life. There's ups
mm,
and downs in everything,
mhm,
fighting or not, and it's just acceptance is very important thing. So I love that you have figured that out for yourself and it's helping you with the fight camps. How would you say that helps you with being a dad and
mm.
juggling all the other responsibilities? Because I would say this is not just fighting related still.
Yeah. Yeah, so like that's something like even just this morning, like I'm like sort of I'm dealing with because like you come out of I come out of fight camp and I'm still in this mode of like I need to be training and it's one thing I noticed outside of each fight camp that I've had the last 4 fights where like there'll be this period where I'm not present when I'm at home and
Mm,
I have to kind of like try and be more present with the kids and really be intentional about it because I'm like today I'm like, oh, like I asked my wife and I was like, oh, can I train today even though I know I I should be at home like you know
yeah.
and really spending like my time with my kids while I don't have anything lined up and yada yada but like my mind is still on this like in this state of like training and like this rigid routine and so trying to deal with that and like be like no you have to be present here and I wrote something in my journal that like I journal every day and I wrote something in my journal about it if you don't mind me reading something just
No,
to
absolutely. That's amazing. I love that you journal.
yeah
I push to everyone that they should journal. So
yeah
I didn't even know you're going to bring it up. Excellent. Thank you.
yeah so like I like wrote in my journal this morning like the more present you are, the more life will start to balance out and make you feel, you know, I need to, for me, it's like I'm still learning to kind of be present in all aspects of my life, not just training. Like training, yeah, that's great. Like in fighting, when I have a fight lined up, it's great. It's really good to be present. But what about,
Hmm.
yeah, again, what about in the times when I'm not training, when I'm at home? I have to apply that same, thing when I'm at home. And so I'm still dealing with those times where I'm like now today, even today, yeah, where I'm dealing with like, all right, you're at home, you're not at training. You training will as much as I want to be there, but like I have
Yeah.
to learn to be present here as well. I'm still figuring out. I think I'll have a clearer answer for you down the line. I'll
Yeah,
message
keep
you,
keep
but
journaling on it. I think what helped me, because when I injured my leg and I had to, say goodbye to Muay Thai, I didn't know for how long.
mm,
Um, it was like this um shocking news because it was like my whole life because it's so
yeah,
intense and you like commit to it so with all your mind and your soul and everything. So when it's taken away, it's like your life is over, like there's nothing apart from it. But I just looked into like this, I was doing like this personal development thing and it was
mm,
talking about different um um, themes of life. So, your
mhm,
career and your hobbies and your love life and your family life and your finances and all of that. It's like a wheel of life kind of thing.
mm,
And thank God I was doing it. I literally just was made aware of it a few weeks before I injured my knee. If I hadn't known about it, probably I would have like a massive identity crisis. But because I just heard of it and I was like, oh yeah, there's so many different parts of my life that I don't normally think about because you're just on autopilot in them
Yeah.
and you take them for granted
Yeah.
that you don't think about it. But then it was a huge help to me because when I had the knee injured, I was like, okay, well, this is just one of many parts of my life. I
Mm-hmm.
love this. And of course, it's very painful, but it's not the end of the world.
For
There's so
sure.
many other things. So to then know that I can be as present as I am in my training, as committed as I am in my training, I can now be committed to a different part. And that part, whether it's going to come back or not, we'll see. Time will tell. Those are one of those things in life that you just don't know what's going to happen.
Definitely.
But so I think knowing that there's always more than just one aspect of your life
For sure.
is very reassuring. It sounds again very simple, right? But it's like one of those things that you don't really think about at a time when you're upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's surprising how just having something in your mind space can help you move through a
Mm-hmm.
difficult time.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing, it wasn't a revelation what I just find out, right? Like it wasn't anything out of that no one else knew,
Yeah.
but it made me accept my situation like almost
Mm-hmm.
immediately. I was like, okay, well, this not ideal, not ideal, but I can handle it because
Yeah.
there's so much more. So
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
you are in this space as well, that obviously like there's different things, and you can have your love is unconditional, your love is can go into different places. So
Mm-hmm.
just because you love Muay Thai with all your heart doesn't mean that you can't also love your family and love your work and love just resting and doing whatever else, like we
Yeah.
have most of us are really multi-passionate, and we can do
Mm-hmm.
more than just one thing. We don't have to just put ourselves in one box and
Mm-hmm.
stay there forever.
Yeah,
uh,
I love how you like say that. Like, it's just like we the stories we kind of, I guess, yeah, the stories we tell ourselves, and we find ourselves in a box. Like we tend to put ourselves in a box, and
yeah,
think there's only one perspective, but there's so many. And it's like when I stopped fighting at like 22, I was like, I had this like year where I was just like, I didn't know what to do. Like
mm,
I knew what I was wanted to do, but like then I realized I was like, oh, I can apply these things from, Muay Thai, these like certain formula of, hard work, discipline, and
yes,
routine. I can apply those things to other things in other areas in my life. And I feel like that's how I got to where I am with visual effects and, my job outside of the sport, because I applied those same skills. But, again, you'd think that now that I have this like formula or whatever that I would be perfect at applying it to my family life and my everything else, and it's not the case because it's a different situation. It's like
yeah,
how do you raise little kids and apply
yeah,
those things, like you can't. And I think, well, I don't know if you can't, but I think it's just like whatever it is that you're doing, you have to be fully present to get the best, performance or the best result or whatever it is. And yeah, I think it's
yeah,
just seeing things for what they are. For
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. And I love that you talk about transferring the skill set, because it's everywhere. Absolutely everything that we learn, I now have this much nicer outlook at life, and even the whole skill set that I had in my fighting career, or fighting journey, it was actually super needed to my recovery. The
Mm,
challenges that came with my ACL recovery, there was plenty, and there was a lot of skills that I managed to somehow move through in in my rehab because of already the the determination and the commitment and being able to focus and push through the pain and all of this. But then also my skill set from my previous job, this skill set also goes into my coaching now. Like it's mind-blowing how we don't think that our skills in one it's the same way, like you have different ways of looking at life. In each area you also will have your different skill set, but you can actually use those skill sets in everywhere in your life. But again, it doesn't mean that you're going to be a master already, which I personally think life would be boring if you were straight away knowing exactly and knew the outcome of everything. Nothing would surprise you. Like it would be boring. You wouldn't be excited, right? So
I think that skill set that you're talking about, like for whoever's listening, I think like what that skill set is, like those certain qualities that you build over time from anything that you do in life consistently. It's like, the skill sets like consistency, resilience, determination. Like you build that over time from when you're doing one thing over and over
and over
again.
over.
That's how you build that skill set. So when you learn it in one thing, you can apply that same thing to, another thing that you want to do. And just so for me, it just so happens to be through the sport of Muay Thai and, combat sports. Like I built that resilience and that consistency and that understanding through sport. Which is why I think sport's great for kids and, a lot of people, because they don't learn it. Not everyone learns in a school environment, learns those things.
No, absolutely. I've only started Muay Thai when I was in my mid-20s. So I had a different life before Muay Thai. Let's just put it that way. And in a way, definitely saved my life, Muay Thai, because it was just a different thing than, partying and drinking and all that, which I pretty much did until Muay Thai has just taken over my heart space and mind space. And it was just way more fun for me at the time to just,
See, my way was flipped the other way. It was like Muay Thai, and then like I went into my through my
well, I always laugh that I started young. In Poland we say everyone drinks in Poland, but really everyone drinks everywhere you go. So I got that out of the way, and then I could have focused. So but obviously I was very late to the game in terms of like competing and stuff. So I was always the older opponent most of the time, which obviously came with its own challenges as well.
For sure.
But so even that resilience and the things that you were talking about, I was thinking of the meditation and the breath work that you mentioned earlier as well. And again, it can be applied in the same way, because we tend to forget when we start something new, and especially the older we get, we all want to be masters of it straight away, or we want to be good at it at the very least, because we compare ourselves to others, or we think, again with the story, right, we think we're too old to start, so we want to see the results straight away. Otherwise we're gonna think that we're doing it wrong. But it's the same way, when you started Muay Thai, when I started Muay Thai, we didn't know all the technique. We didn't, like it came with the repetition. So whether it's a new skill, whether it's a meditation, because I think a lot of people, and I would personally say that meditation and breath work, had I known those things when I was competing, Jesus, I'm pretty sure my fight record would be completely different. Cannot change the past. But meditation, because you didn't, when you meditate, is this like a new practice for you, or is it something that you've been doing throughout your career? And what sort of meditation do you do? Because there's so many possibilities out there, so I'm just curious what works
with meditation. It's like something that I've always, when I finished school, I like kind of started diving into a bit more, and it kind of the kind of meditation I do, again, it's not really, I don't even know what you would call it. It's just a kind of a practice that I try and implement when I'm doing my breath work, and kind of just coming to this, I guess, like, just, how do I explain what I do? If anything, it's like meditation. It's like just to quiet the mind for me.
Okay, so yeah, so there could be like guided meditation that you put the
Yeah.
headphones and let's say there's music or there's a music with someone else's voice telling you,
Yeah.
walking
Yeah.
you through breathing. So do you do something like that, or do you just close your eyes and listen to your own voice, or
Bit of both. Like, you know,
mm,
sometimes if I need it in the day, like if I feel like I need guided meditation, then I'll
yeah.
jump on what's it called on those apps. Like, you know, what are they? I have like Unmind on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one. Can't remember the name of the app,
There was a
but
headspace, I think.
Headspace, that's the one.
Yeah.
So I used to use that quite a bit, but you know, I think like at the moment, like my meditation practice comes when I'm doing breath work, and it's more like sort of just listening to my breath and like allowing my thoughts to kind of come in and pass through, trying not to like, you know, hold on to them and like attach myself to these like thoughts. And
Mm.
I think that really helps with, you know, not finding yourself down this rabbit hole of, you know,
Yes.
thoughts and like finding yourself in those grooves. Um, so yeah, just kind of like being non-judgmental of your thoughts and being aware of them and knowing that they're there, but not attaching myself to them. It sounds like, you know, a bit like, what are you talking about? Like, and a bit wishy-washy, but it's not. It's like,
Nah, man, this is like the most profound thing for everyone to know. So I love that you're saying it.
yeah,
It's the
it's a mental thing. And once you understand that, like your thoughts, if you can be non-judgmental of your own thoughts, it's much easier to like kind of flow through life, I feel,
yeah.
because most of it's happening up here than it is out here.
Yeah, exactly. And you're the one really privy to what's going on in your head. And
Definitely.
yeah, I always tell in my coaching as well that, and even to my own kind of journey, the non-judgment and curiosity are the
Mhm.
two things that everyone probably heard me almost every time when I talk about anything connected with personal growth, is those two words, because they really are so powerful. Because the first thing we do when we hear a comment or hear our own thought is we start judging ourselves. We
Yeah.
start attaching those stories, and that comes from judgment or comparison or all those things. So
Mhm.
when we can just stay curious and let those thoughts be and just float around
Mhm.
and mean nothing, then
Yeah.
we can realize that actually, oh, that doesn't affect me. But as soon as you attach your identity or a judgment to that thought, that's when things can spiral down.
Exactly.
That's when you know, you lose control over your mind and over everything else. You know,
Yeah.
that's what you want to avoid. And it's as simple as just not attaching yourself and knowing that you're different. You're
Mm.
not your thoughts. That's
Exactly.
such a, like, I honestly, when I first figured that out as well a few years ago, I was like, really? Like, how is no one telling me this? Like, what?
Yeah. I think if you can like as well, like if you are, you know, a good person, I think I believe that if you're a good person and you have good intentions, that when you put things out there that like uh, you know, good intent, like they're positive and they're not there to hurt anybody, then like you shouldn't really have to worry about, you know, the effect because it's the intention. Like you have good intentions, whereas like I feel like it's the moment that you aren't honest with yourself and holding yourself accountable to like whatever it is, um, where, you know, say, for example, in my last fight camp, the loss before this one, it was like I wasn't honest with myself in the fact that I was, you know, I had doubt or I was nervous or I was I fit enough? And so when you hear other people kind of affirm those things that you're thinking, but you're not accepting,
Mm,
like it hits harder because
yeah.
you're kind of like, oh man, like they know exactly what I'm thinking. And like that really hits deep because but I'm not willing to accept that in myself.
Mm,
Um, and that's where I think like, you know, trying to put out good things like is important because you can't deny when someone's positive and when someone's really, you know, has good intentions that like you can't deny that it's a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think with the things that you're talking about, it's important to just stay curious,
Mm,
because if you think something about yourself, and then it's fine. And sometimes, like, I used to put a lot of pressure on myself to have to understand everything. You know, when
mm,
I started my healing journey, I was like, oh, I need to know why I think this way. I need to know which part of my life this connects back to. But over
mm.
the course of my journey, I've learned to let go of that need to logically explain everything, and just stay curious and accept every now and then that maybe I don't need as a clear, not everything is black and white, you know, like
Yeah,
maybe I don't need to know exactly the answer, but what I need is to just accept that this is a part of me. And then as soon as you accept and don't
yeah,
judge yourself for it, that's when it loses any kind of negative effect on you,
yeah,
because you're no longer repressing the thought, you're no longer trying to pretend it's not real.
yeah,
You know, all those things that you said, that's because you don't want to accept it, you
yeah,
don't acknowledge it, you're like, nah, it doesn't, it's not real. And you know, with the thing that you said earlier as well, that someone's gonna then make a comment and then it's gonna hurt you. A comment can only hurt you if you yourself deem it true.
yeah,
Because if I say something about you that you completely disagree deep down, like deep down, I'm not
yeah.
talking with the pretenses, but with the actual truth inside of you,
Hmm.
then you're just gonna be like, yeah, whatever, Maggie, it's your opinion. It doesn't,
Yeah,
like, it's just gonna, you know, float
totally.
through you and it's not gonna affect you. But if it's something that you yourself are struggling with accepting, then that is when the whole, you know,
For sure, for sure.
that's
Like
when it's gonna
once
hit.
you,
So yeah,
uh,
acceptance is huge.
that's a
So
massive
one
part.
other question with your practices, because everything that you're talking about, the breath work, the meditation, those are practices. So
Hmm.
whether you're aware that this is your mental health routine or not, I would call it your practice and
Hmm.
your way of taking care of your well-being.
Yeah,
And journaling, so you said you journal every day, that's amazing. So do
yeah,
you have a specific structure of your journaling, or do you just journal your thoughts as they come, or how does it look for you?
yeah. So like I've been journaling since I was, since I finished high school. So that was almost that was 12 years ago. So I have all my journals
Wow,
since,
amazing.
yeah, since then. And like it started out that it was like a very conscious thing where I was like, I have to journal every day, like to. And looking back at my journals, like I was looking through it the other day and I was just like, what was I even writing? Like
Yeah.
some days where I was just trying to force things out, like force the
Mm,
thoughts out. But like, as time's gone on, it's more like a thing of like, if I feel like I need to get something out, I'll get my journal out. But then there'll be days where I'm like, oh, I want to journal today. And usually like I'll open my journal and I'll put the date in. The moment I put the date in my journal on the page, the date, like if I can't think of anything, I'm not going to force anything, so I'll just close my journal. But then I won't write on that same page that I wrote the date on. Like I would let that be just to be like, all right, it's a
mm.
clear day. And so it's just like a very conscious effort of writing when I feel like I need to write at the moment, like now. So yeah, it comes like I could go through a week of journaling and be like, oh, cool. And then I'll go like, and 3 weeks of like not writing anything. So,
Yeah.
but just I'll always have my journal on me. But
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
really cool. Yeah, I definitely journal more when I am stressing.
Hmm.
That's when because I journal, I have my hand journal, which I handwrite in, but I also journal a lot on my laptop.
Yeah.
So I was laughing. I was even talking to my sister, I believe, and I was just telling her that, like a few weeks ago, I had like this more stressful week. So I was like journaling like crazy because I just wanted to have those thoughts just, come out of me so that they're not
Hmm.
staying here. Because once they're staying here, they're going to be ruminating and ruminating, and I'm just going to be upset. But
Hmm.
once I put them out, not only can I see that maybe, oh, that's silly, but once it's still here, you're just like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. As soon as you write it down, you're like, oh, actually, this is not so bad, like I could deal with this.
Yeah.
with worse things.
Do you
So
do you find that there's a difference? Like, do you feel a difference between actually writing physically or writing on your laptop when you journal? Like, how do you feel
So
that
because
effect?
I'm writing a book as well. So I use my journals later on for the book. So there is a reason I want to write on laptop as well, because then I
Yeah,
can just copy paste, go
yeah,
through it, edit it, and flash from it. Another reason why I don't always write, it's funny because like I'm very intense. If I'm like upset and I want to journal, I'm gonna like hold on to my pen and I'm gonna like write, and then my thoughts are faster than my hand is. So if I'm on a laptop, I can speed up. But if I'm on my
yeah,
if I handwrite, then sometimes I can't even read my own handwriting. And there's a
yeah,
place for it as well.
yeah.
But if I want to reread it, if I want to write about something that I know I want to go back to it, then I will choose laptop. But I have
Hmm.
a specific journal for like the most important things. So if I want to set
Right.
intention for new month or for my career or for my vision or something, and I want to like solidify something over there, then I use a handwriting.
Hmm.
I think it's important to find your own way with
Yeah,
journaling,
for
because
sure.
I would never force one way or the other on
Mm,
people, because it really is what works for you. And
exactly.
I like that you don't force yourself anymore, because yeah, when I started, I also, we hear that you need to do it every day,
Mm,
or otherwise, it's not working. And I don't think that's true. As long as you have it as a habit,
that's it.
um, as in like that it's one of your many tools. So
Yeah, it's a
today
tool.
maybe I'll go to the journaling instead of breath work, because that's what my body calls me into, right?
Yeah,
So like the more you know yourself, the more you know your tools and you're familiar with how they affect you, then
yeah,
you can decide whether I want to journal on my laptop or journal on my I would say there is a slight difference. There is a
yeah,
slight difference, but I don't think this difference is so big that you should be holding yourself back from journaling at all, because
for
you don't know
sure.
which one to use. Like it's a personal preference.
Yep,
And it also, even in my personal preference, it depends on the day, it depends on the emotion, it
yep.
depends on if
Time.
I don't have my laptop with me, but I have a
Mm,
journal, then obviously I'm gonna handwrite, and it's fine,
hmm.
even if I can't read it later, which happens
Yeah.
all the time. But I love that you have this habit. I think it's very important, and I think that helps you as well with this whole seeing your thoughts as your
Hmm.
thoughts and not necessarily your identity.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think I wanted to ask you like specifically about your mental prep, but I would say that all those little things that you're doing
Yeah.
um, would constitute the mental prep for fighting, but probably just a general state of being present and general state of
100%.
being more mindful during
Yeah.
your days, right?
Yeah. I really like even just having this conversation now is like making me realize like the steps that it takes like to kind of get to this point. And like the first one is the key one is just like self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest one. Just accepting something for what is. Take your ego out of it and just like
Mm.
see yourself as how it is, like see it how it is and just accepting it. Then you
Yeah,
can move forward and, make the changes and adjust to whatever it is. But if you're not accepting yourself, then it just like you're constantly going to be, fighting that fight. Um,
yeah,
yeah, that's a really massive takeaway,
yeah.
right?
Because if you're not accepting, then most likely automatically you're you're not loving yourself. You don't think you're good enough.
Hmm.
So how
Hmm.
else someone else gonna think you're good enough if you don't
Yeah,
even think you're good enough? it's
yeah.
it's a kind of, again, easier said than done, but it really comes down to it that
Mm.
people can only appreciate us as much as we appreciate ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
So just one other thing I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned a few times that you tend to get very anxious, and but
Hmm.
you then still put yourself in positions that can make you anxious, but you still power through and you go out there. And I think that's super admirable and that's awesome. And I
Mm.
think that's how you learned your resilience and probably got your commitment and determination. But maybe what would be your advice to others, because I think whether it's a woman or a man, for anyone that is anxious and stops themselves from pursuing their dreams or even starting to pursue something new because of those anxious thoughts.
Mm.
What would you advise them to do?
Oh, the thing is, like, see, for me, it's like, I think when I think about it, it's like trying to give an anxious person advice just makes them more anxious.
Yeah, that is true.
Like me trying to
So
be like,
one, chill.
yeah, like stop being anxious, but like that's just gonna send an anxious person
That's
down
just
the
gonna
pit.
piss
Like,
him off.
that's
Yeah.
doing nothing. Yeah, it'll just piss them off, really. Like,
Yeah.
um, but for me, like what's worked for me again with anxiety and things like that is kind of just again acceptance, self-acceptance, having those tools again to like wrap it up, like having those tools on journaling, meditating, breath work, and just um but also just yeah, I think let me think about this. I think yeah, understanding that like it's okay to be anxious as well. That you can't the more you fight and feeling anxious and you know being anxious is when it's a state of mind when
Mm,
your mind's racing, you're taking yourself out of like you're creating all these situations in your head that probably haven't happened or won't happen, and it's just like
mm,
you start losing you know you're taken out of the present. And so again, trying to just like bring yourself back to this state of, equilibrium is
mm.
important. But again, it takes practice, like, and
So
I think
basically, all those annoying things, just breathe, accept yourself.
literally, yeah, like pretty much. But like, I'm not gonna, you can't give an anxious person advice when they're
No,
anxious.
I know
Like,
I'm
it doesn't,
joking, but it is what it is,
yeah.
like
But like,
you
you
just
can, you
keep
can
going.
definitely,
Yeah, maybe even realizing that, you are not the only person that's anxious, that there's
yeah,
so many more people that are going through the same thing. You
yeah,
just don't know about it because they're probably hiding that as well. Or
mhm,
just not making it as obvious, and
yeah.
of learn the tools to manage it a little
Mm,
bit better.
I think I have this like mindset as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it might be just like a person, like a could be a personality thing, but like for me, it's like the older I get, the more I realize and that I'm built for, I'm built for it. I'm built for whatever, life throws at me. And I think once we can, like, we're all built for like whatever life
Yes.
throws at us.
Yes.
Um, Otherwise it wouldn't be happening to us.
Exactly. There's this saying that if it happens, it's because you can handle. Like, you're never
Exactly.
given more than you can handle,
Yeah.
basically. So,
That's exactly right. And so, like, just reminding yourself that, like, you're still here for a reason. You're
yeah.
still kicking and still going strong. Like,
Mm,
as anxious as you feel, like, you're still here and you still have all these things to kind of, you know, work on. Life's meant to be felt and it's meant to be,
amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. That's beautiful. I really enjoyed this conversation. Um, Maybe just one other thing. With all the tools, this is all like internal work and working on yourself. But do you chat with other people? Like, do you discuss your emotions with other people, whether it's other men
Hmm.
or your family members, or like, or
Yeah,
do you
massively.
just do the
All the
inner
time.
work by yourself in the comfort of your, of your head, so to speak?
No way. Like I have a really good support group. Like, obviously my wife is my first person, but like I
Mm-hmm.
have a good group of guy friends as well that, since we've grown up together, but like we talk about, how we're feeling a lot or like what we're going through, and we're all quite similar in that sense that we're not afraid to like open up and tell each other what we're going through. Um,
That's awesome.
so yeah, I think having a good support network is important. Even if you just have one or two people, you don't need a whole group. Like,
Yeah, quality over quantity.
absolutely, that's it.
Mm. So my last question, maybe that
Yeah,
we'll see,
keep going. I'm loving
but
it.
I'll almost there. So what's your why now in terms of your fighting? What sort of legacy you want to leave behind, whether it's
Mm,
fighting or in your life? Have you thought about it? Do you have an answer or?
my why. So I think, yeah, no, I don't know if I have an answer, like a clear answer, but I think
Mm,
my why is to, like, one thing I set out for myself at the start of the year was just to honor myself in the things that I know I'm good at, and the things that I enjoy and that make me happy. So just to keep that going, because I feel like everything flourishes around me when I'm honoring myself. Um,
mm,
and holding myself accountable, staying disciplined, all those things, whether it's in fighting, whether it's being a dad, whether it's work, holding myself accountable and honoring myself. That's my why. I think that that's all I can really do. Like, I can't really say I'm doing this for some massive goal, because who
mm.
knows when I'm gonna die. Like,
Yeah, no, but I think that's what we're here for,
hmm,
to discover our gifts
yeah,
and just use them in service of others or to our own life, because everything we do is really in service for
hmm,
something or
yeah,
someone. And the more we do things that we love ourselves,
hmm,
then not only your quality of life improves, but the quality of life of people around you improves as well, because you are a happier, a more compassionate person. So it has a ripple effect on everyone around you as well.
for sure.
So that's a great way. I think that's an absolutely great way. So yeah, I think we can finish here. This was a beautiful conversation. Thank you so
Thanks,
much
Maggie.
for opening up about your practices, the struggles, showing your mind to us a little bit. I'm always fascinated with everyone's mind. Now I'm
Yeah.
like super into mind. So thank you so much for having this conversation with me and being so honest.
Thank you, Maggie. Nah, I enjoyed it. I wish we could talk. I could go on for ages.
Yeah, I could go on as well, but I'm like, you've got probably responsibilities and stuff.
Yeah.
So, do you have a upcoming fight, or are you in a little pause right now? What's happening with the fighting?
Yeah, at the moment I'm just gonna have like maybe a month or two off, just to
Okay.
kind of catch up on family time and
Yeah.
do all that stuff, and then I'll be back on later. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. So have a
Thank
great
you.
day, and thank you so much again for
Thanks,
joining me.
Maggie. Thanks,
Cheers.
guys.